Alright, welcome back to another Mask Momentum video. Peter here. Today, we had to go over some important news. We got a banned and restricted announcement the Monday, or it was like at least a week after Worlds here. Got back. It's been still kind of jet lagged, honestly. I've been waking up pretty late and going to sleep pretty late at night, so hopefully that can come back, because I like to go into the gym before going to work, but I've been kind of sleeping just enough to make it to work on time, so hopefully that changes in the future. But we got a ban and restriction announcement today. This happened, I already know the entire article. I expect everybody else to also know what got banned in this article, but here's some of my thoughts and opinions on it. Some things I thought would happen, and there's some kind of surprises in here that I didn't really think about going into it. So Classic Constructed, going into Classic Constructed, pretty much knew High Octane was a lock, which obviously High Octane is banned. I just think they wanted, usually LSS policy on a lot of these more broken things that they, identified to us beforehand. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Think about like stubby hammers when Phi came out originally. They banned it in Blitz. Obviously, that gave, the alarm bells, basically the calling that happened with stubby hammers Phi. Obviously, was incredibly broken for Phi. The deck was super cool. We got to play an RTN season, I believe, as well with it, and then they banned it right after. Usually, LSS likes allowing you to play with like the broken, the broken deck, broken tools, and then eventually bans it. Giving you notice that, like, hey, if you buy these cards or, etc. to build these decks, that eventually it is going to leave because we do think it is too good. What they did about the High Octane with, one of their videos before, I think James or Brian talked about it, that it was pretty much gone for sure after Worlds, and then especially getting 2 in the top 4 and seeing the absolute blasphemy that was, Sam on camera and killing Matt Rogers. And something I would like to say is, like, I actually watched him do it multiple times during Swiss against, I saw him against Fahad. I think the round literally prior, doing the same thing to his Enigma deck, just doing, an above 90 damage turn. Other decks also I saw blowing up Enigma that was trying to fatigue them. Just an incredible amount, basically. So High Octane got banned. This was actually the one I did not know was going to happen, was the Count Your Blessings blue actually got banned. So just the blue got banned, so taking 3 out of the 9 Count Your Blessings out of the way. Something specifically, I was wondering if they were going to hit Count Your Blessings, and personally I don't think Count Your Blessings is actually super powerful, right? I think there's a lot of play to it. I think the silver bullets versus them, I think poison's kind of weak, but like you kind of have to play it in certain decks. Gravekeeping was pretty good against it. Invert Existence is like something that may come out of the woodwork, depending on the meta and stuff like that, if Vincent is playable. But like I think there was stuff that you could do against it. I also think there is like fundamental things you could do against the Count Your Blessing decks that would put you ahead, and I felt like a lot more people understood how to play against Count Your Blessings at Worlds than I think the average Twitter blue sky or whatever user complaining on one of their apps is kind of there. Yeah, I think more often or not I see really bad takes about Count Your Blessings than people trying to figure it out. I think although the Runaways did crash out early on the card, I think they were mostly correct. I think the Count Your Blessings does create board states and like game states that are inherently talk shit how the game kind of goes. I might not think it is overly powerful. I think there's a lot of counterbalance to it. But something that I thought was going to happen was it was going to hit because of more of like a KCI, like forgot what the white card was, but Second Coming or something. Those combo decks basically made it so it was very unfun to watch, right? I think playing versus CYB, I think even watching it from my perspective, like at a high level, I think was really interesting. I think usually CYB games are like pretty interesting to watch, but there is a percentage of time that they do take, and sometimes that they are, you know, really bad to watch. Like specifically the finals of Worlds. I mean, we pretty much knew who was going to win the game about 20 to 30 minutes into the game, and then had to watch, you know, 40, 50 more minutes of that finals game for, you know, the game to effectively finish at that point. I think that was something that they were thinking about on this band. And I think there's like a little bit of hit or miss with CYB. I think we got to think about that. You know, I think this card was originally printed when they were obviously the format was very different in their testing, right? I don't, you know, it was a little bit after they decided to ban stuff that, you know, this card was already existing, already in a ecospace. I think if you had, you know, the tome still legal, and stuff, CYB, I don't even think it would honestly be even a problem or played if any of these other, you know, game-breaking cards were still legal. And I think it was originally printed when those were still a thing, and they didn't think it was too good. Maybe like a comeback potential for certain decks to try to fatigue those decks because they're going to, if they don't kill you on the really explosive stuff. And I think it's perfectly fine. You know, got banned. Hitting blues are actually pretty interesting. I do think them hitting a color on something specifically that cares about you playing, you know, 9 copies of it is pretty good. Like, I thought them restricting bonds just to 1 color was pretty good. I still think it was like a little too good because what that card fundamentally did. But Count Your Blessings going from, I think it was like around 59 health to like 30 now, is a pretty influential, like, what is it, 20, it's 24, right? Because if you play the blues last, it's, you know, heal 7, heal 8, heal 9, so it's 24. So 24 life point difference rate going through it. It's a lot, honestly. It is a lot. I still think there's going to be some decks that still play the 6 copies of CYB, that plays it more of a package or playing in very specific matchups. You know, trying to sideboard with CYB in your deck is hold 9 slots. You know, I think it's there. I think it is correct for them to hit it. I think I was getting pretty tired of people talking about it on, you know, Twitter. Obviously did not interject in a lot of these discussions, but watch from afar. Did not did not enjoy people crashing out about CYB every single day for multiple hours every day. So glad they hit it. I think it'll make the format a little bit better. I still think the decks that were playing CYB, like New and Enigma, will have their place. I think you can make the arguments that the decks without CYB were a little bit stronger than with them, but I think every deck that top 8 Worlds was like very interesting build of the original deck. A little bit wonky of all of them as well, so I think they're perfectly fine without CYB, and I think the decks that were trying to play CYB, like Bravo and, you know, maybe like Pistol Dash and stuff like that, were already bad, so it's not like they were getting played to a high level anyways. I think actually reading all this is pretty good. I would say to read this on your own time when they talk about High Octane, talk about Winnable with like pitching to Anathos and how it's like technically drawing a card once per turn thing. They talk about like what is a control deck in games and what specifically that means for Flesh and Blood as well. I think this was a really good read, and I would definitely check that out if you haven't. And also we got this Jagged Edge, which is pretty interesting. Obviously, this is a Warrior Hate card specifically for Enigma and things that are, you know, damage prevention. Check weapon attack, it's +3, and damage this would deal can't be prevented. I think it's pretty interesting. I expect to see this card to be played decently heavily as a sideboard card for Warriors going ahead. Going ahead, basically. The Warriors need a lot. Their class has historically just been uber dog shit for like the entirety of, you know, inception of Flesh and Blood, besides the very, very beginning of the game when everybody was quite bad. So they need the help. They need to go in a very different direction than what Warriors currently are. They also need better cards, honestly. Like, the Warrior card pool is pretty bad. But Jagged Edge is a decent start to get going through there. Also, incredible art. Love that as well. Now we're looking at Blitz. Blitz is pretty interesting. Something that I'll say is, listening to the keynote video where they were talking about they did not like how Fast Zen rotated in the format. Basically, it was illegal for 1 week. It was just by far the best thing you could ever be doing in Blitz at the time, and there was nothing really close. And I think that was like pretty bad for the fundamental design of this format. Personally, I think the format is very mid to bad usually. I don't think it's really of a competitive format. And if you think it's a competitive format, I think you're wrong. But I know a lot of locals do play Blitz. It is something that I played for a very long time. People played Blitz locally for a very long time in Vegas just because it was just what a lot of people could, decide to play, right? Like, not everybody wanted to build a CC deck. Not everybody had the funds to switch all the time. Not everybody wanted to play limited all the time. So we would bounce around. Blitz was kind of like the middle ground that a lot of these people would like, and they had, their pet decks, and I played a lot of Blitz. And then, obviously not being LL, everything changed into a 1,000-point system. It's from the 500, I think, is a pretty good thing. I think a lot more people that are playing Blitz are going to be more casual players that are, more hero oriented. So you should allow them to play the hero for longer instead of just like, I know there's a couple, locals of mine that wanted to play Zen, and they our like skirmish was like the second or third week, and they literally were not able to play the deck that they spent money to build, which is, obviously not a good situation. Belittle being banned. Belittle is historically one of the best cards of all time. Honestly, one of my favorites. I wish that card would get unbanned in CC every single day so I could play it again in any of my aggro decks, but unfortunately, it's being banned in Blitz. It's never coming back in CC unless the game drastically changes in a way that is probably unhealthy for the game. So Belittle also getting banned makes sense. It is quite good in the decks in Blitz that it is legal still in. And then Hadron Collider is also banned. Honestly, I think Datadol secretly was one of the best decks in Blitz for a very long time, and I think with multiple different cards that come out, the Dash IO deck and other stuff like that, I think this is a safe banning because that deck, you don't want that deck to crash out like Zen crashed out, and I think that deck had a possibility of doing that if people figure it, more wide range of people figure it out. I know a lot of people like Datadol. It's historically been one of the, the worst decks of all time because it's a 3 intellect hero, but it is pretty interesting. Has a very powerful hero effect, and I think people that were going to play Datadol anyways are still play Datadol, and I think it makes it so it doesn't randomly become just by far the best deck in that format. So let's move down to what everybody wants to listen about. We got Living Legends, obviously being the last winner of the Living Legends tournament. I honestly expected the first one, maybe not both of them. This one actually kind of surprised me. Obviously, Open the Floodgate got restricted. We'll read this one because this one's kind of funny. Full power Kano decks running the maximum 9 copies of Open the Floodgates, in addition traditional suite of draw 2 cards that don't exist in Classic Constructed, are rising to the top of the format as seen by Peter Boone 6. Oh, that's me. Winning deck list at the Battle Hardened run alongside the World Championship Osaka. While Living Legend is a place to do the most powerful things in the game, Kano with this much draw power is ending games too quickly, too consistently. Therefore, Open the Floodgates restricted to a single copy per deck. Prior to the printing of Open the Floodgates, Kano was a top contender in the Living Legend format, as seen by Alex Vor's winning Battle Hardened list that ran alongside Porto Amsterdam in July. As such, we expect Kano to continue being a top deck in the format following this restriction. My personal opinion on Open Floodgates is it was crazy good, probably actually very too good. Playing the deck, realizing that they probably played this deck in CC testing it was actually crazy to think about. I don't think I played the deck optimally because it was literally, games 1 through 10 of me playing in, full powered Kano basically with Open the Floodgates all the tomes with 15 tomes. I think the deck was absolutely crazy, right? I just think it was way too good for the format, even when other decks are doing the most powerful things in the game, like being able to kill people on, turn 1 of the game very consistently. If you hit, Wildfire plus any draw 2, hitting another draw 2, then you just win the game on the spot. Like, it is, probably something that shouldn't be happening, right? It was pretty good. I'll say that I think Kano was one of the best decks in this format before Open the Floodgates was printed. I think, obviously the Kano specialists are still going to have success. Me, Alex 4, Caleb, and other stuff like that. Fully expect to play this deck in Chicago still, even with one Open the Floodgates. You're still having 7 tomes, which is still like a decent margin of hitting it. And honestly, playing much more of a slower style of Kano now. You still have very, very broken things that you can do. Maybe you get to play a little bit more maybe Swell Tidings and just maybe some other 2-cost spells that you wouldn't have done. Something that was painfully missing from the deck was just red Aether Flare. Definitely think that is one of the specific cards that I probably will play instead of the Open the Floodgates. I also would probably play blue or yellow Open the Floodgates if I had to choose which one as my one of in the deck instead of the red. I think the reds were the worst ones because you don't really care how much damage the Open the Floodgates is getting, because if it just does 1 more damage than originally printed, you're going to draw the 2. So, which most likely you're going to draw the 2 anyways because your Wildfire is hit beforehand, or they don't have enough resources to stop the Open the Floodgates. So drawing the blue is probably a little bit better because you're going to kill them if you draw 2 cards off Open the Floodgates the majority of the time. So you don't really care of how much damage it originally does, because most likely with casting Wildfire, Double Spell in the middle, and Blazing, your opponent will die from like 36 plus. Like, it is very consistent. If your Wildfire hits for 3 to 6 is very, very good, and continue to think Kano is going to be one of the best decks in that format. I just don't think it's tier S like it was. I think it was by far the best deck in that format, but I think now it's just like a top 5 deck, probably the lower end of top 5. And I don't expect many people to play it unless you're just a Kano guy, basically. So, and then we have Starstruck being unrestricted. This is the first. This might be the first unrestricted card. Oh no, I think Warmongers was unrestricted. But this is gonna be one of the cards that Starvo used directly. That's getting unrestricted. Their thing is, as the format has evolved over the last year, Deception has come a long way from the days of Starvo domination. We now feel comfortable giving Bravo back full access to Starstruck. So something pretty interesting is I did think that Lucas Oswald should have won his semifinals game after watching it live, because they kicked. It's actually funny because the only people that watched that game was like people that watched the very first half of the game, and then everybody got kicked out. But because I was in the finals, I got to watch the entire game to completion, and I think Lucas probably should have won that game, but mental boomed, but it's perfectly fine. I've definitely had my time doing that. But Starstruck going back to 3 is actually incredible. I think a lot of reasons why people were a little bit more down on Starvo and they haven't just slammed Starvo no matter what in that format is that he lost a lot of his his like really good on hits. With like the Starstrucks, the Spinals, and stuff like that being restricted all to 1, but giving him back a little bit more power. I think Starstruck is the correct one to give him a little more power because it costs a little bit more, but it's also kind of his card, so that is coming back. Starstruck pretty good, I think pretty good for the format right now. I already thought that Starvo was the second best deck, maybe third best deck in LL, and with Kano going down and Starvo going up, I think him and Viserai and Chain are kind of the premier 3 I would look at right now if I was going to play Living Legend. So yeah, and then Commoner, which is pretty interesting because Battle-Hardened Portland is Commoner, and I'm a 3-time Battle-Hardened champion now in 3 different formats. So, specifically, I haven't won a format in Sealed, Team Event, and then now Commoner is a new format. So, I need to know what we're banning in Commoner. Ether Ironweave is banned because they directly think Chain has had a dominant run across Goldful events in the past few seasons, and wants to put the offense down. I do think Chain is the premier aggro deck in that format. I still believe that Commoner is a 3-deck format. I think it's just Ira, Icelander, and Chain. They're literally the only decks that have ever been good in that format. Honestly, nobody has really been cooking Commoner because it's kind of been a joke format for a long time. Nobody really took it seriously for a very long time, like besides very specific people that were kind of farming all the gold foil events. But even with that, I think with like a larger quantity of players maybe thinking about playing Commoner because of certain battle hardens, or if they put it in, maybe a skirmish season, or maybe a road to national season. I don't think they would put in a road to national season, but maybe a skirmish season. I think having more eyes on the format, I think we're gonna flush out really what is good and when it's not. Maybe just get some bans in the format as well, because it would take me a lot to not play those 3 looking at the format currently. So that pretty much is it. But this has basically been my reaction to the ban and restriction announcement. If I will see everybody in Portland, if you're going, I will be there as well, playing some Classic Constructed with, the banning of High Octane and CYB being banned. Pretty excited to see what is going. Also, something that is not stated here is that IRA is now legal in Classic Constructed since the calling at Worlds, which IRA actually did top 8. It got 8th, and then obviously died versus the first place pretty quickly. So, but IRA still top 8'd the first event. It was ever legal with probably a list that wasn't extremely flushed out as well. But I think I'm very excited to see. IRA is one of my favorite heroes of all time, and I can't wait to see if it has success and has legs in the format. And I will see everybody later. Peace.